Hi, so in this video we are going to have a look at plank, side plank and forearm plank and how you can add variations to those positions to explore a little bit more core strength. So once you feel like you're comfortable and strong and steady in your plank and side plank, and you're really feeling that sort of deeper layers of the core, this sort of core cylinder we have that is all the integrated musculature of your lower abdomen, of your trunk, we can then start to play around with more of the outer layers of the core. So the muscles that help us to bend into flexion, to come into lateral flexion, side bending, also rotation as well. So you've got everything coming into play, and it just adds different sort of layers of effort and challenge and things to explore in your body around your core. So I'm going to presume that you've warmed up your wrists, and these are just some nice things you can play around with and add into a practice after you've already done your warm-up. Perhaps you've already done plank and side plank. These are some things you can add in after that. So we're going to start in a down dog, and just take a few breaths there, feeling that 360-degree breath around your back ribs, side ribs and your front. Finding a little bit of a movement through your legs, and then from there we're just going to shift into plank pose. And then from your plank pose, just kind of feeling your strength and stability there. You could bend your elbows, push the mat away a couple of times. You could do a couple of shoulder blade push-ups, just giving yourself a little bit of time in plank, building up that time under load for strength. And then we're going to start to rock forwards and backwards on the toes. See how that feels, just shifting your weight. And then we're going to stay a little bit shifted forward to the front of the toes, lift the hips up higher, push your hands down and round your spine up as much as you can. Look down underneath you so that you're looking at your toes. Keep pushing down through your arms, round up through your upper back as well. Keep breathing, so it's almost like a cross between cat pose and plank. We're going to count down for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Curling your tummy in as you exhale. Let your body go back to down dog shape and then drop back down onto your knees. And then from there we're going to look at some side plank variations. So we'll start at the top of the mat in a relaxed spinal flexion position. Just let your head and neck release. And then from there we'll step one leg down the mat and come into a side plank variation where you take your arm to the inside of your front leg. The leg goes halfway down the mat, toes turn off the mat so the leg goes sideways on. Your thighs parallel with the top edge of your mat, and then go onto the outside edge of your back foot. Now to start with, we're going to bend the lower knee and then bring the hip down. So you're sideways on the mat. So this is a really nice starting point just to explore this side plank variation. So what we're feeling into is a little bit more side bending or lateral flexion. You can play around with that top hand position. Sometimes if it's a bit further away from you towards the top of the mat, it feels like you've got a bit more room along your sides. You can play with that. Roll your arm outwards, let your elbow bend and feel like you're rounding and bending your ribs towards the mat. And then push your hand down, lift your hip up. You can keep your knee on the floor for the first one, adjust the position even, lift on up and see if you can round the top ribs up so you're kind of feeling a bit curled to the top, and let your arm go up and over your head. And then as you come back down, again you can bend your elbow, push the floor away with your hand, lift your hip up and reach over. So you're just feeling a little bit more into the sides of your body. And then from there, if you want to take it a little bit further, you straighten your bottom leg. So then you have a little bit more weight to hold in the shoulders. So just check in with how that feels. You might feel it more manageable with the knee down. You can reach the arm up and over. Coming on down, landing your hip, letting your shoulder kind of squish to your ear a little bit as you land. Push the floor away, corkscrew your arm outwards, come on up. And just doing a few of those in a row. Each time you lift up, feeling the core, but especially along the sides, your obliques join in a little bit more in this variation. One more. Option to stack your feet. And same thing, lowering down, coming back up, a little bit more of a side bend. Especially on this lift up at this point, really feeling how your obliques, the side muscles there, support you. Last one. Coming up, lost it there, roll back, and then come back down. Take a breather. I'm going to turn around to show you the other side. Okay, so we're starting in our forward bend. Take a breath or two, step one leg back. Your front arm of the front leg goes on the inside, walk that foot halfway down, turn your straight foot sideways on, lower your hip to the mat. And then just adjust. It feels a bit awkward at this point. You can take your hand a bit further away from you and see how it feels to lower your ribs down to the mat, straighten up again. You're feeling the supporting arm corkscrewing outwards, accessing those armpit muscles on the back there. Okay, and then bending your bottom knee up, lifting up through your hip, and as you hold it here, you can feel the muscles from the outside of the armpit all the way down your side. So that's our targeted area. Reach your arm up and over. Exhale, lowering back down. Inhale, feel the underside of your trunk and shoulder reaching over. Exhaling down. So that might be plenty of load for today. If you want to add more load, you're straightening the bottom leg. Reaching up and over, focusing on that underside of your trunk from the shoulder to the hip, lowering down. Let's do two more with a straight leg. You might have your knee on the floor. And up. If you want to add the stacked feet variation, having a go at that. What does that change as you stack your feet? You might just feel there's a little bit more in the front core to hold you stable. The last one. Up and over, holding all along the bottom side, and then let your hand come down back to knees down. And take a breather. Okay, our last one is looking at forearm plank. So I'm going to take the arms down and reach out through one leg. Set yourself up for forearm plank, shoulders pulling down away from the ears, lifting up between your shoulder blades, taking your second leg up. Okay, and just take a few breaths there, feeling the whole front body lifting away from the floor. And then we're going to add our variation. So take the feet a little bit wider. You could lift the hips up a bit higher, so it's a bit more rounded up, finding that flexion, front body works hard. And then turn onto the sides of your feet, tap your hip down to the mat, and here's the fun bit, lift yourself up away from the floor, stay sideways on for a moment to feel the side of your trunk, and then roll back onto the tops of your toes. Second side, turning to the side, pushing evenly through both forearms as much as you can. Tap your hip down, and then the tough bit, pushing through your arms, lift up away from the mat as high as your hip will go, and then find center. We can do a rest there. See how that felt. It might feel like you need to rush through it, because going slowly, it's hard to keep that control. So just slow it down as much as you can, and perhaps do 1, 2 each side, and then take a breather, okay? And then see if you can get a few in a row. So this may take time to build up to. To begin with, one feels a bit of a shock to the system. That's completely normal. So just let yourself have time to build up. So strong in your forearm plank is the prerequisite to carry on, really. And then from there, sideways, tap, lift up and hold, back to center, reset your shoulders, sideways, tap, lift up and hold, center, reset your feet, sideways, tap, feeling the side body, center, sideways, tap, lift up, center, reset your feet, they slide away. Let's do last one. Back to center, knees down, and take a breather. Okay, the good news, if that felt like a tricky, challenging one, is there's a really lovely modified way to start practicing that, and you keep your knees down on the mat. It still is progressive, it will really build up your time for practicing and strengthening your all around your core, your trunk, but it's a little bit of a more manageable one than that one. So you start with your knees down, but just a little bit behind your hips so they're not right underneath. And then again, set your strong shoulder girdle. Tuck your toes under. You're going to use your toes to pick up your knees and just swivel them slightly to the side. And then you can drop the hip closest to the mat down, tap, lift it back up, hold that side position again. And then you just have to kind of find your toes to lift back up and then drop your knees back to center. Okay, let's try that to the other side. How did that go? Knees, just pick up a tiny bit and then you're just kind of swishing them across. Lower your hip, pushing down through your arms, lift your hip up, pull your hips back to center. Okay, you might have another go at either side and see if that version works well for you. So there's a few variations you can add to your plank, adding a more rounded up flex position, feeling all along the front body. Side plank, finding a little bit more lateral flexion and side bending. And then your forearm plank, finding a little bit of rotation and twisting along your trunk. So just try those out in your practice and just perhaps one or two at a time and build up your ability to do a few repetitions and feel all the strength benefits.